into an agreement. I hope the screen is visible and right. So
Yes, ma'am.
yeah. So the first three elements we saw. So basically, you understand that there are more than one party for any agreement, right? So there are two parties or more than two parties for any agreement. So we saw there has to be an offer. So one person offers and the other person accepts it, right? So if there is no offer, I can't assume saying that I thought you are giving it to me. No, it's not an assumption. There has to be an offer and the other person has to accept, right? Then we saw the next, uh, uh, element is it has to create the very intention should be there to create legal relationship. So we saw there are social relationships and then there are social agreements that cannot make a contract, right? Unless it becomes a legal agreement, right? So there has to be a legal agreement. So we saw some examples like father and son. Father promises to give some money to the son, and then it cannot be a contract. If he fails to do that, there is no contract, right? And then we saw there has to be lawful consideration. So consideration is some benefit or something in return. There has to be something in return, not necessarily in cash or kind. It can be an act, or even it can be a promise to not to do something, right? So that is so these are the three elements that we saw. So today we will see the rest of it, right, in this class. Now there is another element. The person has to be competent enough to, yeah, there has to be, the person who enters into a contract should be competent enough to enter into a contract. Say for example, a person who's maybe drunk and not in sound mind. At that point of a time, somebody comes and then gets his signature and all that, or he tells her, yeah, here I will promise to give you this property to you. Now while entering into the contract, the person was not in sound mind, right? And afterwards, when he comes back to his mind, he will realize, supposing he realizes that he was not, he did not even know that he had signed that particular document and others have taken advantage of it. Now then he has his right to fight for it, right? So a person has to be competent enough to enter into a contract, right? So, and also the other day I gave an example, like, what if a minor enters into a contract, right? So that cannot be a contract, and anyone can, legally, for example, like, a child does not know. So somebody, like, persuades the child to write something, to agree on something, and then, get it signed. No, that is not valid, right? It is not valid. So the people who enter into contract should be competent enough to enter into a contract, right? So competency should be there. So say for example, a person who is a minor, then a person who is not of sound mind, and a person and who is disqualified on some legal ground to enter into a contract, they cannot, right? So this is one of the important element, right? Then the next one is there has to be a consent, and the consent should be free and genuine consent, right? So when you say free consent, say for example, both of us are entering into a contract, there is an agreement that we are making, then we should have that same like-mindedness, right? So supposing one of you're not of the same mind and you really don't like it, right? And you don't know what to do, so you're not very clear about the agreement, you're not very clear about the consent also. So wholeheartedly you're not giving a consent, then there is a problem, right? There is a problem. So even between the seller and the buyer, when it comes to like price or the cost, right, when they agree on terms and conditions, and then when they enter into a contract, right, both of them should have the same like-mindedness, and also the wholehearted consent has to be given by both of them. So the offer is given, the other person accepts it. So when the buyer accepts the offer, the buyer, when he agrees to the agreement, enters into a contract, should give a genuine consent, and there has to be a free, genuine consent. He should not be forced right? He should not be forced. A person should not be forced to write. Say, for example, somebody comes to you and give you, trying to get your signature on a blank paper. It may be a stamped paper, but then it's a blank document. Nothing is written. And they are saying like, we will take care of it. Don't mind, you just sign it. Never sign it. Never sign a blank paper. No, you're forced to do it. Supposing a person is forced, four people are there, right? Four people are, forcing a person to sign, a blank document. I mean, there's not even a document. Nothing is written. It's a blank one. And then they are asking him to sign. Then it is not. That means that person has not given a freedom to give his consent. It cannot be considered as a consent. So out of fear of that those people will do something against him, he or she may sign that paper. So that is why you can see a lot of cases in the court, right? So where people have forced someone to give a signature, right? To put signature on a blank sheet of paper. Now that is wrong. They can even force you. I think you must have come across cases like when parents, become old. Say, for example, the father is really old, and then the sons, the families, they come and then they ask him to force him to sign a paper. When he's not willing to sign, they force, because out of fear, he signs those documents relating to property and so on. And we can see those fights, right? So when there is coercion, that is force, right? Undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation. So according to section 14, it cannot be considered as a consent. It cannot be considered as a contract. So for any agreement, there has to be, free and genuine consent, right? The next one is, there has to be, the very purpose of it is, it should be legal. It should be lawful. So I think at this point, everyone will agree. No one will disagree to it. It has to be legal one. So it cannot be illegal. It cannot be immoral, right? Opposed to public policy or against public policy. So if it is going to harm any public, right, then it cannot be considered. So according to section 23, the very purpose of it, object should be lawful, right? It should be lawful. It cannot go against the law of the land, right? So this one, so this is one of the important, element, right? Now, the next one is, the agreement should not be a void. We will see this in the next, in the next topic, where you will study about what is void agreement, voidable agreement, void contract, right? Now it should not be declared void. So we will see what it is, right? Maybe in the next one we will see. So the agreement must, should not be expressly declared void. So certain agreements, it can be considered as void agreement, right? Certain contract can be void, can be declared as void contract. So in such cases, no, it will not be considered as agreement. So we will see it in the next one, right? Now, the next one is, there has to be certainty of, performance, which means when you enter into a contract, say for example, selling and buying, right? There has to, something has to be done in action, right? The very content of it, both of us have, agreed to sell and to buy. So there is an action. There is a definite action. Purchase is definite action. So you're paying money for it, or for example, I am paying money for it, right? So I have promised to buy, I have promised to pay you 1,000 rupees for that product. So here is a agreement, consent is there, agreement is made, contract is there, contract is entered into, and it is very clear. There is a very clear action. Purchase is an action, right? Say for example, like, you're a building contractor and you have agreed to build a building and sell it. There is a definite action. It is not vague. Yeah, I think of constructing a building, and then one fine day I think of giving it to you. No, it's vague. So when you read those, that is why in any agreement, before you sign, say for example, even in the workplace, like, you are entering into an agreement with the management in any organization, right? So you give an agreement, you are signing it. So when you sign it, you just see like what is written. You read it very carefully and then you sign it, because there is a very clear action which is expected by the management, right? So you will perform this work, and you will be paid this much money, right? So very clear contract. It is not vague. But supposing if it is vague, then don't take it. You are going to a bank, you are getting a credit card, and you are signing an agreement. You read it very carefully. It will all be written, terms and conditions will be written in, very small letters. Have you seen that? I don't know. Once I was cheated like that. I did not read. It was so small, in small letters. I did not care to read that, but I signed it. Then when they were asking for money, I said, why should I have to pay for it? Some insurance money or something they claim. I said, no, I don't. Why? I don't want to pay. They said, no, you have agreed. Where did I agree? Then they showed me the signature. I did not even read it, and then, so that is not, but okay, that is my mistake. But at least the points that are written, it should be clear. We should be able to understand it, right? Understand the action, right? So in any contract, right, there is a performance which is expected by the party. And what is the performance that is expected? You state it very clearly. It has to be stated very clearly. Right. Then, it is an agreement. It can become an agreement. If it is vague, if it is not clear, because sometimes purposely they may write it, without any clarity of what it is, so that the other party will not understand the intention of it, and they will sign it and they will, get hooked to some, wrong actions. So they need to be careful. If there is an agreement, it has to be very clear of the performance that is expected by the parties, right? And definite. Okay, so it is according to section 29. Right. Now the next one is, there is a legal formality. Right? There are certain formalities. Now, can an agreement between you and me, can it be oral? Today, for example, both of us are agreeing, saying that, like, I'll sell my, property to you. And you are saying, yes, I will pay this much money. Now it is oral, right? But we have agreed. Both of us have agreed. Now, we should have some sense when we enter into a contract like this, agreement like this, it should be written. Have you seen some, I think this is something practical, you must have seen that, right? Take for example, you have, your maid at home, a helper, right, who helps you at home. And some of them will be in debt. I think most of you have seen that. And they will say, every time they will say, I have to pay this much money to this person, that person, this person, that person, right? Now, you ask them where it is written, how much you have borrowed, how much you have paid so far, where it is written. You know what? You just ask them and see. Some of them, they won't have anything in written. And they'll say, no, that person will have it. And he will show me some book and, show me the amount. Which person? Which book? What is that book? Where it is written that you have agreed to borrow so much of money, and you have agreed to pay this much correctly with interest. What is the interest? What is the interest amount? You please ask. I have asked. That's why I'm saying. Then my helper once, she brought, I said, so many months you are paying and still you have not cleared this 5,000 rupees. Month after month, year after year, she was paying money. Where is it written? Where have you agreed? I told her, you please bring that paper or book. There has to be a passbook, I said. There has to be at least, a clear book where it is written and signed and sealed. Okay. I've asked, you won't believe she brought one small, small paper, just a small paper. And in red color pen, in small, letters, the figures are written. Only the interest. She was paying only the interest, 500, 500, 500. For years, she is paying 500. In 10 months, 5,000 rupees should have been over. And even if you put interest, right, in another few months, it should be over. But for years, she was paying 500, 500, 500. She was cheated. I said, this person is cheating you. First of all, there is no book where it is written and then where it is stamped. It is not even one seal is there. This is how poor people, illiterate people are cheated by others. While borrowing money, giving back money, receiving money, or giving money, like there is no record, there is no document. Right? So I think you as young people should be alert, help others. So when somebody says, I have borrowed this much money, or they are asking you money, right? They want to borrow from you. Make it very plain, clear. Write it very clearly. Put the seal, right? And every time they pay, get the signature. And that's how it should be. So there are legal, you cannot like verbally, see, verbally this has happened among friends who have borrowed money. Please give me 1 lakh of rupees. Yes. On this basis, yes. You give some jewel and get it, yes. Where it is written? Nowhere. Oh, he's my friend. And you have given your jewel, and finally you are also paying money. After the end of it, you ask for a jewel, it is gone. They'll say, where did you pay the money? Now, what is the proof that you will show it? There's no proof. There's no evidence. Right? Now, so we should have, these are all, a common sense, we can call it, right? We should have some knowledge on this, right? So any contract, yes, it can be spoken or even it can be verbal, it can be oral or it can be written. But actually, when it comes to practical life, all of us should know there has to be written. It has to be a written one. Then only it becomes a document, right? Then only it becomes a document. There is an evidence. There is a proof of entering into a contract. Because orally, when you say something, people can deny it very easily. They can lie. They can cheat. They can be our own friends. But when it comes to money and matter of money, benefit, advantage, they can, make use of others. So, and forget also. We are human. And sometimes we even might forget. So it is better, it is written one so that it becomes a document, right? And in some cases, it has to be done on stamped paper. So all of you might know that, right? Say, for example, you're taking up a rented house. So your parents, you can see your parents, they will have a document where the owner of the property and the person who has taken it up as a rent, you will sign it. So you have agreed to the terms and conditions, everything is written and you have agreed. So after you agree, you sign those papers, right? And in some cases, it has to be registered. Say, for example, if it, in case of property and all that, when you buy, it has to be registered, right? So there are certain requirements, right? And so when you register it, you call for at least minimum 3 members as witness for registration, right? So these are all statutory requirements, and according to that, the contract should be entered into, right? So this is according to section 10, right? So so till here, so these are all key elements, right? Key elements. I hope it's clear for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, good. So can I take it as a sample of your class who have understood, you are able to follow? till here? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. So we'll now move on to the classification. There are certain classifications, right? So classification, we'll just move on to this, and I will stop in just another 10 minutes, okay? Sorry. Yeah. So contracts can be classified on the basis of validity, on the basis of formation and performance, right? So on the basis of, this is the number, okay? Yeah. So on the basis of validity, right? We will see there are three bases, right? Three bases. So on the basis of validity, formation, and performance, it can be classified, right? So when a contract is, any contract, we have already seen it is based on an agreement. So there is an agreement, right, between two or more parties, right? And we have also seen all the essential elements, right, so far, right? So for example, if any one of the key element is not there, right, essential element is not there, then it is a void. The contract is contract, it's not a valid one, right? So when you say validity, so when you can call it as valid, all the key essentials should be there. For example, there is only one person. No, it is not an agreement. You know that, right? There is not a, for example, there is no free consent. That person was forced or you were forced to do it. Yes, it is not valid, right? And there is no clear performance, right? Written, it is vague, it is not clear. Very easily, it can be considered as like invalid. A minor has signed it, it becomes a invalid one. So we know that. We have seen all these basic elements, right? And these basic elements should be there. When all these basic elements are there, you call it as valid agreement, right? So there is an offer, acceptance, there is a consent, and no one has forced onto it, right? Terms and conditions are clear, purpose is clear, right? It is a legal one. The relationship, there is a legal relationship, and it is enforceable by law, right? It is not illegal. It is enforceable by law. When all these basic elements are there, then you call it as a valid agreement and valid contract, right? And if anyone is missing, then you know that it is illegal, right? It is void, right? It is called as, invalid agreement. So on the basis of validity, right, you know that when you call it as, a valid agreement, when all the basic elements are there, it is a valid agreement, right? So that is very clear, right? Now, what is voidable contract? Right? What is voidable contract? Now, say for example, we've all understood, right? Now, till here, we have seen all the key elements are there. So when consent, of the party to a contract is not free, for example, it is somebody had forced into it, right? Now it is voidable, right? You avoid that. Say, for example, both of us are entering into a contract, and then I'm bringing a document. That document is not clear. You're not able to accept it. So that is a voidable contract. You very easily avoid it, right? The purpose is not clear. It is vague. The terms and conditions are vague, or you're not able to accept it. You're not able to give a consent to it. And I am forcing you to give your consent. I'm saying that unless you agree, I will do this to you, right? Now, this is a voidable contract. You avoid it, right? Any party can avoid it. Now, this you call it as a voidable, contract. And it is his option, right? It is an option of choice of a person, the party, to accept it or not. Why do you want to accept it when it is not clear? Why do you want to accept it when it is not legal and there is no legal relationship? Don't accept it, right? So when it is given to me and I read it or I see that situation and I say, no, I don't want to accept it. I don't want to give my consent to it, right? So this you call it as, voidable contract. So when key elements is not there, it is missing. Somewhere it is missing. And when one party, understands that there is something like, uh, what shall we say? There is some kind of deception. There is some kind of, you're not able to, understand it. And for sure the intention is really bad, right? Intention is not clear or intention is really bad, then you avoid it. It is a voidable contract. It is your option. The option is given to a person to avoid it, right? That you call it as voidable contract, right? I hope you are able to understand. So an agreement, which is, it is according to section 2, but when you read it, I don't know whether you'll be able to understand it, but this is what it means, right? When the key elements are not there, it is missing, right? Then the option is given to the parties either to agree or not to agree, right? So one of them, when they know that it is not clear and the essential elements are missing, fundamental elements are missing, then you avoid it. It's a voidable contract. That is the option given to the parties, right? So this is according to section 2I. So that section says, an agreement which is enforceable by law at the option of one or more of the parties thereto, but not at the option of the other or others, is a voidable contract. I don't know if you are able to understand it, but this is what it means, right? If it is forced, there is an undue influence, there is an intention of fraud, somebody is cheating, right? Someone is in the contract is trying to cheat another person, right? The option is given to avoid it, right? So that contract is avoidable at his option. So that is section 19 and 19A, right? So I hope you are able to understand it as what is voidable contract, right? So simple example is like, A promises to sell his car to B for 5 lakh of rupees. His consent is, obtained by use of force. Say, for example, 2 of the people are coming and forcing him to, like, you have to give me this much of money. If you don't give, yes, we will give the car, but then if you don't give, this is what will happen to you, right? The contract is avoidable at the option of A, right? And or the other person is forcing him to sell his car, right? So if I come to you and I force you to get your car, saying that I'll pay so much of money, and then you don't want to. So I think again you might see it, in property and all that. Parents don't want to really give it, or they don't want to sell it, but out of force, they are forced to sell, right? Now that is avoidable. It is a voidable contract, right? Because they were forced to put their signature and then sell the property, right? So this can happen in the following 2 cases, right? So we have already seen that, and let's say, for example, A and B contract, right? Enter into a contract that B shall execute certain work for A, right? For rupees 10,000. So B is ready and willing to execute the work, right? But A prevents him from doing it, right? Now, so say, for example, both of us have entered into an agreement, and agreement in the sense like you will do certain work for me and I will pay like 1,000 rupees. But when it comes to work, I'm not allowing you to work, complete that work, maybe with some wrong intention or some wrong influence, right? And then I am forcing you not to do it. But we have already agreed, right? We have agreed. You have also given your consent, right? But in the course of time, I am really, I'm using all my force not to do it, for you not to do it, right? So you're not able to complete that because of me, right? Now this contract is voidable at the option of B. So he can avoid it, right? And you have every right to recover the compensation or loss. For example, because of this, you have you have gone through some, like maybe you have incurred some loss, right? You have incurred some damages, then you can claim the money. You can claim it, right, from me, because I did not allow you to do it. I did not allow you to perform it, and because of that you have incurred loss, you have incurred some damages, right? So in that case you have every right to claim the money and the damages from me, right? So this is one case. So this is what the first case says. So when a person promises to do something for another person for a consideration, yes, there's something in return, but the other person prevents him from performing his promise, the contract becomes voidable at his option. So according to section 53, that contract is voidable, right? The second case is, we'll see that when a party to a contract promises to perform an obligation within a specified time, so any failure on his part to perform his obligation within the fixed time makes the contract voidable. Again, at the option of the promise. This is section 55. So we have agreed to finish a particular task, right, within a certain time, and then I have failed to do it, to perform it, then you have every right. So this happens in the business, right? So both of us, you have entered into a contract, we have entered into a contract, and I have promised by the month of, by this, end of this month, I will finish the production and the entire lot will be sent to you, right, on the last day of this month. But in case I fail to do it, I drag it, the next month comes and then I'm not able to complete it, finish it, right? And you're incurring loss. As a customer, you have incurred loss. By the time my product comes to you, it's not of use at all for you. Then the entire lot will be a waste, right? Money that you pay will be a waste. For example, if it is 1 lakh of rupees, it is a waste for you. Why you have to waste? Now, if you come to me and saying that I don't want to, accept it, then there has to be an agreement, right? What does the agreement says? I have agreed to sell the product by the end of this month. I have not kept my promise, right? So you have every right to come and say, like, I don't want it, reject the whole lot. You have every right to reject it. Now this you can, it happens between, any business person and the customers. Most of the times, the problems will happen here. I mean, in this, say for example, it's pandemic, and you are saying it's a pandemic time. I could not, complete the production, but still the agreement says I will get it on time. So if both of us, again, if we come to an understanding of making another agreement, it's fine. Otherwise, you have every choice. You have an option to reject the whole lot as a customer, because I have not kept my promise to deliver the product on time, right? So this is another situation where it can be voidable, right? So I hope you were able to understand it, follow it. So the next one is void agreement and void contract. Can we see it in the next class? I thought I'll stop here and